Well, according to churchleaders.com, it's a question every parent is familiar with. And at least in my experience, this guy says, Michael Kelly, he says, it's both beautiful and annoying at the same time. Why? It's that question. Why?
Yes.
Are you getting this yet from Trey?
Oh, yeah. Sometimes you go down, like you've gone so far down the path, it's like there is no other answer. You've asked why, and then I tell you the answer, and you ask why about that, and then I tell you the answer, and you ask why about that.
Mm-hmm.
There is no more.
We've so deconstructed it. There's nothing
there's
left.
no more answers.
So what's the final answer you'll give at that moment?
It's either, depending on what it is, I'm not sure, or there is no more, or, well, because that's what God said.
Yeah, blame God.
Because that's what God made it do. I don't know.
That's a really good modification of because I said so.
Yeah, well,
You
God
did forget
did it,
one.
so.
You forgot one.
What?
Ask your father.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I use, again, she's sleeping. I don't know, you'll have to ask your mother a lot.
I use that a lot because Trey's also learning Spanish, and he'll ask me outrageous things. How do you say this in Spanish? I don't know. You're going to have to go ask Dad. I can't even.
Or you could ask
I can't even think about it.
Hey,
Or
Doodle.
Yeah. My Google Home. Yeah. Which he has before.
Yeah, and Ron, you remember those days of whys.
Yep.
My kids do it now just to be annoying. But
a trait they learned from who?
their mother. Lauren. They listen to Lauren a lot. But no, so his theory here is that as kids grow, they tend to ask why less and less. He says it doesn't disappear entirely, but it's like the natural sense of wonder slowly gets just kind of beaten out of them by life. You're nodding yes.
Yeah, I could see that.
Are you agreeing with this, Daria?
Oh, yeah, definitely happens.
Just over time, you just stop asking why.
You're just going to like take it for what it is.
Yeah, you just, as an adult, you
Whatever.
start going, I don't know why, but I'm just going to deal with this. Who knows? But we do, he proposes, ask the why question occasionally as adults. It's usually connected to certain circumstances. Can you predict what that would be?
Why is this happening to me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pain.
Mm-hmm.
As adults, we generally only ask the why question when it's out of a posture of pain, he says. So, like, for example, why is my wife sick? Why can't I find a job? Why is there so much anger in the world? Why is God allowing this to happen? These are the why questions we start to ask as adults. And and there's nothing wrong with those questions. I think a lot of people in their faith early on will end up thinking it's bad to ask God these why questions. It's not. You can ask him.
Yeah, he doesn't mind.
He may not answer, but you can let it out. That's, tell God how you feel. He knows anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I sometimes have to laugh at myself when I kind of hold back in praying some things.
Yeah, you're not hiding.
I'll be all formal. Oh, Lord. And I'm like, wait a minute. No, you know what I want to say. So here it is. So the writer goes on to say, here's a difficult question to ask ourselves during these why seasons. He says, would knowing why really help us at all? What do you think?
It might. Like, why can't I find a job? If there is something like you're putting the wrong things on your resume and maybe you leave off a certain job that you used to work at, and that might help you, or, something you need to change your photo. It might be as simple as that. Upload a new photo that makes you look a little more professional. Maybe you've got, the photo of your mullet from 1985 or
for
whatever.
Kids, like now, you may want to cut the mullet if you're having a hard time getting a job.
A mullet with the curly hair on top, yeah.
Don't even get me started. But Ron, I think you're right on that, although some of those things could be solved by just some good counsel. And so sometimes I think the why can't I get a job question is more existential. It's more like, I've tried all these things. I've fixed everything, Lord.
Why is God not taking care of me?
Yeah, like this is something you've got to fix now. I mean, I feel like knowing the why is going to help me.
Yeah, I think in certain situations it could, like even with like, why is my spouse sick? I think we would all take comfort in just knowing that God is not taking delight in punishing us. there maybe is some other reason.
Could be. But generally speaking, the writer of the article is saying that the why is probably not going to help all that much. And then his example he gives is the life of Job, right? Where Job goes through a whole bunch of horrific things. We know why reading the book of Job in the beginning, but Job never finds out. And when, God finally is like, all right, Job, sit down. We're done. In Job 38, he just starts like, I'm sorry, who stops the water at the shore? Oh, that's right. That's me. Like he goes through this whole list of things and he never says why. Job never gets the why.
Mm-hmm.
So the writer of the piece here goes on to say there's a better question to ask than why. It's also a one-word question. Why? But it's not why. What's the one word we should ask instead? According to churchleaders.com, we ought to consider stopping the tradition of asking why. As adults, we generally ask God why when life gets hard. And I mean, I don't think we necessarily expect to hear an answer either. We're just frustrated. It's not very productive.
Yeah.
It's not inward focused. And so the writer of this piece says, I wonder, though, if there's another word we can change by God's grace during seasons of difficulty that will also dramatically change our perspective. What if instead of asking why, we started to ask what? Now, it took me a minute on that. I'm like,
Yeah.
what are you doing to me, Lord? That doesn't help, right? No, he says, see, if we really believe God loves us, that he is for us, that all things work together for our good, that he's busily taking all these events, even the painful ones, and using them redemptively to shape us into the image of Jesus, if that's all true, then we can ask the what question. And so here are some what questions that can reframe the whole problem. What is God teaching me in this difficulty? What is being exposed about my heart? What needs to change in my faith? What lie have I been believing?
That's a good one.
And this is, quite honestly, this is a big chunk of what I picked up in the spiritual formation course I took with the Caritas Center.
Here we are, another Nancy Kane reference.
It's the Nancy Show. No, she's had such an influence on my life. It's hard not to bring her up all the time. And this is another one where, we can focus on the pain and get mad at God about it. Or we can acknowledge, really say, I believe he's going to work all things together for my good. And I believe that pain is God's invitation for growth. And if that's the case, it's time to turn inward. Like, for example, if somebody is very stressed about how much they hate their job and they can't find a new one, you could ask, well, what's God teaching me here? Well, maybe you've got just far too much of your heart wrapped around your job. And he's asking you to let go of that. Maybe you don't really believe that he's got your best, like he's got all things working together for your good. And you need to spend some time with the Lord and work on that. Mm-hmm. Have you all ever tried examining pain this way? Or is this kind of a newer concept?
I have. I don't know that I got very far, but I wondered. So I guess that's a good first step.
Yeah, this is very new for me. I didn't pick this up until just a couple of years ago. And only recently have I tried to make a habit out of it. And I still have to, if I'm really going through something, I'll call my friend Nancy. And she'll essentially just do this. She'll just walk me through these. I wonder what God's teaching you in this. And I go, oh, right. Yeah, I'm supposed to learn stuff and be more like Jesus. That's right. Not just get mad about my circumstances. Now, he makes a good point in the piece here that this doesn't dismiss the idea that we ought to grieve a bit. Sometimes you got to grieve, you got to weep, mourn, let it out. But you can't just stop there. You've got to do some reflective inward examination. Lauren, how much of this have you been able to do consciously, or is it an effort?
I mean, it's. I think it will always be an effort. I don't think it comes very naturally to many people because we like to take care of ourselves.
Right.
We don't really trust God to take care of us. I remember a time I had just started college and I developed a chronic illness, and so much so that I was passing out in the bathroom from pain.
Oh no!
I had to crawl from the communal bathroom back to my dorm room. I couldn't walk very well, and it was a months long process of figuring out what was going on. I was at the doctor all the time. I was getting blood draws every week. It was autoimmune hepatitis, which came along with rheumatoid arthritis, which is why I was just like crippled with, I couldn't really move. And so there was a really long season where I was like, why is this happening to me? I just started college. I'm trying to like, you know, make friends. I'm trying to do good in school. I'm trying to live this new life, this new independent life, and I can't. And I remember journaling a lot about that, of like, what is God doing right now? And like, why does it have to be right now? And I spent a lot of time, probably that first full year of college, asking, what is God trying to teach me? And I think it was a lot of not relying on my own self to get me through things.
And that's a tough realization
Yeah.
to come to. He was almost breaking you to make sure that you're going to, as you begin your education at a Bible college,
Yeah.
to rely on him, not yourself and your own
Mhm.
strength. It's humbling.
It was.
It sounds like it changed you too.
It did. Yeah.
And see, I think what happens is when we don't ask the what questions, we don't change from pain. We just get more embittered.
Exactly. Because you're just like, you never get an answer to the why.
Right. And we treat it kind of like Hinduism, even though we don't think of it that way. We're treating it like it's karma. You're like, what did I do, God?
Yeah.
Are you punishing me now? Yeah, so we don't believe in karma.
Yeah.
It's not how it works.
Yeah, God is love. He's not punishing.
That's right. So what he's doing is maybe it's the consequence of sin in your life, but either
Right.
way, what he's doing is he's trying to refine you and he's trying to shape you into his image. And so if you don't reflect on that, you're not going to become more like him.
Mm-mm.
In fact, I think it was Joe Stoll years ago at Moody Bible Institute that asked at a chapel service, he said, you need to be able to ask yourself and people around you, your friends, your family, am I more like Jesus today than I was 90 days ago? And that should be a
Yeah.
pretty sobering question for most of us.
Because 90 days is long enough to show a change if you're actually trying.
Yeah.
But the easier one to answer is than when I was a kid or than 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But we truly are supposed to be in this long journey. And I met a guy, he's a pastor essentially, and he's in his early 90s. And I was talking to him, and he brought up to me that a profound realization of an area of growth he needed in his life that he finally figured out at 87.
Mm.
And there's part of me that was like annoyed, not at him, but like 87. Shouldn't you have it all figured out by now? You're in your
Wow.
90s. You should be like at some sort of destination. But he was truly viewing a spiritual journey as one that doesn't conclude in this life.
Right.
So he's still trying to conform
Yeah.
his life more and more to Christ.
We're never going to make it.
Right.
So it's a constant change.
And if that's the case, then we really should kind of, ask the why questions for a few minutes, but we should, as we get more spiritually mature, set those aside as quickly as possible and move to the what. What is God teaching me? What is being exposed about my heart that needs to be refined? What needs to change in my faith? And what lie have I been believing?
Mhm.
And when you spend legitimate time reflecting on this, even write down those 4 questions and go into solitude and start journaling and asking yourself these questions. I did this recently at a Metro Park, and you'll get answers quicker than you realize. I'd highly encourage you to consider if you haven't done it yet.